Good afternoon. We have started our recording. Thank you for being with us today. Today is February 8th, and this is our fourth session of the Wida eLearning Club. We have two special guests today from Duplin County, and we're going to just share a couple of slides to remind you that we have our archives. You can access all these documents in the bit.ly/NC Wida eLearning Club. You have access to the archives, the sticker collection, and some additional resources, some links that we have collected from the different speakers, and then you have that information there. But in the archives, you have access to the video recording and the presentation in two different formats. You can download the PDF or the Google Slides. And if you want to be a guest speaker or share during the highlighted workshops, please just send an email to satli.stocks@dpinc.gov, and then we can organize and plan and add you to the schedule if you are interested in sharing. Because the idea is that we share some different practices and activities that you are implementing in your classrooms or your districts, if you are a lead teacher or a coordinator, based on what you have learned, or if you have started one of the workshops and you see like, oh, this is aligned to what we are already doing, then we can share and find those similar points and share those resources that you have implemented and adapted. So very quickly, our agenda, we have two workshops that are highlighted today: Leading for Equity Classroom Walkthrough and School Improvement Planning for the Equitable Education of Multilingual Learners. And we have our share out by Maria Uribe and Adriana Marston from Duplin County, and we have one card with our club card in case you haven't seen the different stickers and you have the opportunity to start collecting those motivational stickers that we have. So the first workshop today, Leading for Equity Classroom Walkthrough. Very quickly, this is a 2-hour workshop. It's targeting administrators, but if you are a lead teacher that you provide PD for your other ESL or content area teachers in the district, this is a really good opportunity, a good resource for you to have. So the guiding questions for these workshops are on the screen: what roles, and this workshop is very specific about the educational leaders and the roles that they have in the community, advocating and building capacity for multilingual learners and English learners. And they talk about the role and they define the role with 4 different points. They said they support structuring quality language programming, talking about the LIEP in the districts, navigating external contexts, supporting the community if you have newcomers, refugees, those students and their families, and how we build that network to support them navigating the community and the school system. And also promoting a culture of collaboration, meaning that it's not only the students that are supported by some teachers, certain faculty or specialists in the districts, but they are also part of the other members of the faculty, and they know how to support these students as well, and how we make those connections and build those relationships with content area teachers, other administrators, and students and families. And we have a resource, always. We include one of the resources shared during the workshop. This time is the Wida Guiding Principles of Language Development. And you can click, this one is, you can access. You don't need to log into the workshop, but we still ask you to navigate through that, explore the workshop, and maybe consider completing it with one of your colleagues. And the second workshop is School Improvement Planning for Multilingual Learners. And this one is 6 to 8 hours. Sometimes it depends how you read and if you want to focus on some of the readings. There are some videos as well in these workshops. And if you download the transcript and you want to review the video a couple of times, it might take a little more than those hours that are allotted in the description. but still those are very short workshops that you can help your school administrators complete, and that if you complete this, they will also help you get some ideas of how to advocate for your students. So the guiding questions for these other workshop are and this one is basically, the first one was about the role of the school leaders. How can we all collaborate? And this one is not just the school leader, that is L or ESL specialist, but now how we can all, the entire community can support the students. And this is what brings our speakers today. They're going to talk about how they have built capacity for the multilingual learners and how they have helped the entire school community be engaged and collaborate and provide equitable services to all the students. And then we have some specific points. What I really highlight from this workshop are the modules with the voices from the field. These are different educators who share what is it that they're doing, how they're doing it, and what practices they really recommend. And if they selected one strategy, they apply it during certain time, and now they're sharing what happened. What was that case that in their building, the environment change, and they see all those changes, and that's what I think that's part of the most valuable resources. But those are several videos, so then you have to enroll in the workshop, and then you will have the access to them. So I see that we have some of my colleagues, Ivana Anderson, Susan Walls, and Mr. Marshall Foster. So if you have completed any of these workshops and you want to share something before we turn it to our guest speakers, please feel free to unmute now and share.
Hey everybody, it's Ivana. I did the Leading for Equity classroom walkthrough, and it says 2 hours, and you can definitely do it in 2 hours. But like Zatley was saying, I think it's really good as someone in a leadership role to spend a little more time in it and really thinking through it, maybe even going back to it. It's very it's short, but it's very useful for helping someone in a leadership position understand what they should be looking for. So even if they're not very familiar with working with our English learners, you can see the categories there where it talks about what effective leaders do, understanding data literacy and culture in the different pieces. And so I highly recommend it, even if you're not in a leadership position, to take this course, because then if you have the opportunity to talk with someone who is in a leadership position, you can share some of the things from the actual training. So I think it's a very worthwhile, and I think it's probably the shortest one that's out there, but I think it's worthwhile whether you're a leader or someone who can influence a leader.
Thank you, Ivana. Anybody else who wants to share, or we can continue?
I just will reiterate, this is Susan, and I'll just reiterate what Ivana said. I took this workshop and I have recommended it to administrators out in the field who contact us, who are new to ESL and Title III, even ones who aren't, but they have found it. I've gotten feedback from them. They found it incredibly useful. I think all of these e-workshops that Wida has put together I've been around Wida for a long time, and they just continue to get better every year. I am so impressed with these workshops that I've taken this year.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, so we're going to continue, and I'm going to turn it back to Maria Uribe and Adriana Marston. They're ESL, EL lead teachers in Duplin County Schools, and they're going to share some of the activities and strategies they have implemented with their teachers in their professional development in the district, building capacity for multilingual learners.
Hi, Zatley. Hello, everybody. This is Maria Uribe. I work with Adriana Marston as ESL lead teachers in Duplin County Schools. Duplin County Schools is a very small, rural, well, that's actually very rural, but it's not very small. Geographically, it's quite big, and we have a very large EL population. Last time I checked, we were above 1,900, and those numbers keep growing. So today we wanted to share some of the professional development activities that we've used in our district as a way to support, equity-focused teaching. So first of all, I want to mention that we are very lucky in our district that our leadership prioritizes professional development that addresses the needs of English language learners. There's a requirement in our district for teachers that they have to complete 6 to 3 hours of professional development related to language acquisition and cultural awareness each year. And we've been surprised to know that that's not the case in a lot of districts. So that gives us an opportunity as lead teachers to provide ways for the entire school community to engage in those conversations and that self-reflection under teaching of multilingual learners under an equity lens. So if we go to the next slide. So some of the topics that we've covered in our PD. So we've done professional development on, large topics, and we usually take feedback from the schools. But talking about culture and talking about students' background, we always try to include these topics throughout the school year because there are things that are very important for teachers to know, especially when it's the first time that they're working with English learners. So a lot of these topics are aligned with Wida's guiding principle 1, which is that multilingual learners' languages and cultures are valuable resources to be leveraged for schooling and classroom life. Leveraging these assets and challenging biases help develop multilingual learners' independence and encourage their agency in learning. So one of the first things we like to cover is the definition of culture. And we like to talk about surface culture and deep culture. So we all know that surface culture refers to those tangible norms that are associated with a certain culture, things that are very easy to see, like the way they dress, their food, their music, their language. But then deep culture, on the other hand, are those norms that are not seen, such as beliefs, attitudes towards different areas, like the concept of personal space or the concept of time, and how they vary from culture to culture. So our teachers are always shocked to hear the differences between the culture, the culture of our ELs. And just for some background, our students are Hispanic, the majority of them, or Latino, but we also have students from other countries, and Adriana will talk a little bit more about that. But we always ask them, why does culture matter when teaching ELs or MLs? And a lot of teachers, surprisingly, don't know the answer to this question. So we try to share with them during our professional development that culture is such an intrinsic part of who we are as people that it determines the way that we view the world and therefore the way we learn. So it's so important to know about students' culture, to have an understanding of their culture, because then we will be able to teach them better. We'll know how they learn. We'll see how certain attitudes, part of that deep culture, will affect the way that they react in the classroom. And just to give you one very quick example, we've done a training in one school in particular, I remember, where we talked about how in a lot of Hispanic or Latino countries, when a child is being scolded by their parents or their teachers, they're expected to look down as a way of admitting guilt. But in US culture, teachers expect the children to look them in the eye when they're being scolded. And that's something that a teacher may interpret as them being rude or ignoring them. While it's completely the opposite. They're actually looking down because they are ashamed, and that's what their culture has taught them. So that was very eye-opening for some of our teachers to know that little things like that they've noticed, they understand, oh, this is why this happens. So really, really powerful professional development sessions we've had when it comes to talking about deep culture and surface culture and the differences. Another thing that we like to convey to teachers is that acknowledging their culture makes students feel valued and included. And it's the number one thing when we're talking about equity, students feeling like they belong, like they're part of their school, like their personal identity, cultural identity is accepted. So we also talk about culturally inclusive pedagogy, which is, deals a little bit more with what we do in the classroom. And we like to tell them that, culturally inclusive pedagogy is assets-based. So we focus on what the students bring to the classroom, and that is very student-centered. And we also talk about how it values the students' linguistic and cultural backgrounds while simultaneously challenging and supporting them. And one example of this is how when we teach cognates, we are trying to help students make connections between the words in their language and English. But students feel really good about themselves when they get to share a word in their first language with the rest of their English-speaking peers. So it serves both purposes. It helps them improve their literacy skills, but it also covers that part of that, value of their culture. And then finally, in our trainings, we like to have teachers reflect on their own practices and think about what they've been doing and how that aligns to the needs of their ELs. And the next slide, we have an example of one activity that we've done. Sadly, could you please move to the next slide? Thank you. All right, so this activity we've actually done several did it from the book Unlocking English Learners' Potential. And then this was a very the original tool for action was much extensive. So we decided to make our own version and obviously give credit to them, and share with the staff at the schools at the beginning of our training sessions. And we would ask them to try to fill out the form. Think about one of their ELs that they were currently teaching and try to fill out as much information as they could in the form. And a lot of them could, share the basics, like, what their proficiency is, where they're originally from. But when it comes to more, going in depth about their background, like what are their interests, who do they live with, if they recently arrived, were they reunited with their family, or was there a family separation, what was their educational experience, did they have any interrupted. It was a great way for teachers to go deeper into their own practice and think about how what they know about their ELs has a great impact on how they teach them. So this is always a great activity that we like to tell teachers, especially if you have a student that just arrived to the country, you have to know as much as you can from them. And some of this information is not easily found like in the CUME folder or anything like that, but we tell them that this is an opportunity to connect with parents and collaborate with the ESL teachers, because they usually know a lot more about their students' background. Okay, so now Adriana is going to talk to you more about other types of professional development that we do.
Yes. All right. And to begin with, I would like to have all of you look on the screen at the grid where you see the rectangles. So just look for 15 seconds at that grid and let me know if you see anything else besides the rectangles in the chat. Just stare at the grid. All right, so Did you see anything else? Any other shape? Nobody's saying anything, so yes, I see something in between the rectangles. Very good. What is it? Maybe a star, somebody said. Anyone else? All right, I don't see any other answer. So indeed, if you look carefully, you will see some gray circles. There are circles. Try to look now. In between, right in between the rectangles, do you see gray circles? I know they are hard to see at the beginning, but once you look carefully, you are able to see them. Or if you saw them as stars, that's very good, Ivana. So basically, this is an analogy that we have with the culture. So when Maria and I go to schools and we do professional development, we give them this grid. When we do professional development on culture, we give everyone this grid and have them take a look at it. And obviously, everybody will talk about the fact that they see the black rectangles, but if they look carefully, they indeed say that they do see the gray circles in between. Now, what's the analogy with the culture here? Basically, the black rectangles are like the surface culture, the things that are easily seen, like people, the way people dress in a certain culture, or the food that people eat in a certain culture, while the gray circles that are in between are not as easily noticeable, and they are just like the beliefs of a culture or the religion, the personal space. These are not things that, let's say, we all go on a trip in Japan, we will not immediately see this in the streets. We will see the way they dress and the way and what they eat, but it will not be easily noticeable to see if they are bothered by us getting too close to them when I'm talking about the personal space. So this is an analogy that we use when we do the professional development. And many times our teachers are having an aha moment. They feel like this is eye-opening. All these activities related to culture have been very successful with, with our teachers, and it really makes them understand their students much better. So I will move on to the next category, and the next activity, and that will be Barnga game. Now, let me explain how this works. It is a game of cards. Maybe some of you know about it. And basically, we have everyone, all the participants, sit in groups at tables, and each table will have to play the game, but each group will have different rules to play the game, but they don't know about the other tables. So when you are at a table, you don't know that the rules at another table are different than yours. So what happens is the main thing they have to do is they have to play by the rules. We give them the rules. And after a person reads the rule to everyone at the table, they have to start playing, but they're not allowed to talk. So they cannot communicate except for with their eyes or gestures. They cannot talk. So once they play for about 5 minutes and everybody gets into the game and they start liking it, we tell them to move. We tell one person at each table to move to another table. Now, it's very interesting because now when they move to another table, they expect to have the same game and the same rules. But surprise, here the rules are different. And then they start being confused, then they start being frustrated, and they want to speak and they want to participate and ask questions. Wait a minute, this isn't good. At the other table, I could do this. Now I can't. So they want to communicate and tell the others what they feel, how frustrated they feel, but they're not allowed to, because the rule of not speaking applies to everyone. So that is very challenging, and I cannot tell you how much the teachers enjoy this baranga game with the cards, because it's very, very eye-opening. When we ask them at the end of the game, after they play for about 20 minutes with all the rotations, they tell us that we ask them how they felt when they moved. And they say, we felt confused, we felt frustrated, and the fact that they can't talk make it even worse. So then we explain that this is exactly what happens with our multilingual learners when they come from another country and they don't speak a language and they have to play by the rules of this culture. And this is totally new to them. They expect to still be able to do things that they were doing in their own country, but surprise, the rules are different here. So it's very, very eye-opening for our teachers. And like I said, this game is a great success always. And they all feel like, now I understand my students. Now I'm going to be more careful with them. So we love this activity, and we encourage you to use it too. And we did go and buy all those cards for them to use, and it was all worth it. And the last one is the puzzle activity. This is another culture activity we use with our teachers. And here we give them some puzzle games, but just like with the cards, there has to be something different. A table, let's say one group receives receives their puzzles, but when they start making the puzzles, they finish in like 2 minutes. They realize it's very, very easy to put together. At another table, we give them a puzzle with a lot of pieces, like 1,000 pieces that it will take them forever to finish. Another table will get a game of puzzle, but we take out some pieces, so they will have some missing pieces when they play. And that's a problem because they will never be able to complete the portrait they are creating because of the missing puzzles. And then another table, we give them the puzzles. This group will receive all the puzzles. However, they will not receive the box. And without the box, they won't have the big picture. They don't know what they are creating, what they are working towards. So what is the analogy with the culture here? Well, or with our students, we're always talking about students that come here from another country. And sometimes, let's just think of let's take each one. So when they have too little, I mean, when it's too simple or they have very few pieces, then that can also mean that we teach students, we give them things that are too easy. So we need to challenge them more because they could finish it right away. So it was not intellectually challenging to meet their level. The ones that received too many pieces, it was too much for them. So we have to be more careful and not overwhelm them. The third example with the missing pieces is students sometimes lack the background knowledge to understand the content we teach. So those missing pieces have to be taught separately. And this is what the teacher has to do. She has to put more effort into teaching some background knowledge to help the students understand the content. Otherwise, that background knowledge that is missing is actually, it's the same as the missing pieces of the puzzle. And finally, when they are missing the box, is when the teacher doesn't know enough about their background knowledge to teach them successfully. So it's on the teacher to start learning about their students now. Okay, so these are some of the games or activities that we wanted to share with you and that our teachers find very eye-opening, and yes, they do take all this information and apply it with our multilingual learners. Now let's go to the next slide. I'm sorry, before we go to the next slide, I still have something here. As we can see, if you look on the right-hand side, the cultural awareness. What you can see over there is an online class. It's just a screenshot of an online class. We call them online modules. So as Maria was saying, we have to provide we provide professional development both online and on site. So we have 4 sessions of online modules, and each one of them takes 1 month. So basically they are self-paced, and all participants, all our teachers have a month to complete the tasks. We basically include a PowerPoint, and the PowerPoint will obviously have the slides, will have videos, and many times Maria and I do an audio recording explaining what's on the slides. So our teachers can check out this PowerPoint at any time, but then they have 3 tasks to complete. And one of them is to post a comment on a discussion board related to what they learned. Another task is to reply to a peer, which makes them read other peers' responses or posts on the discussion board, and then they choose some posts where they feel like they can elaborate and add to it. And the third task they have to complete is to turn in an assignment. Now, the assignment is always related to what they learned in class, and they usually have to teach a lesson and write a reflection on how they implemented what they learned in this class with us with their students, and obviously write students' reactions, basically how it all went. So this is usually their assignment. I mean, it can vary, but this is the idea. We want to make sure that they are implementing what they learn in class with their multilingual learners. And for this, we get some information. I mean, when it comes to culture, because now we're talking about culture, for the culture class, we used as a resource, I'm not sure if you heard about this book. It's called Not for ESOL Teachers, but we felt that it was a great resource. Yes, it's called Not for ESOL Teachers, because the author basically wrote it for all general education teachers, since the ESL teachers are considered experts already at this. So it's a very good book, and that's this is what we used for our online modules. All right. Now let's look at the next slide. Thank you. All right. So as a follow-up, after we do the PD, both the on-site and the online, we did, especially before the pandemic, we did some classroom walkthroughs to ensure that the teachers are implementing these strategies that are learning during our PD. And now we really loved this resource that we found in the Wida course, the classroom walkthrough course, and we are planning to use this resource from now on, because we really liked it. And it was, from our experience, I can tell that it really worked. When we did the classroom walkthroughs, we could see how what we talked about and what we trained them on how to do and how to implement was actually being implemented in the classroom. And if they had questions, we were there to answer them. So it was very nice, but then it stopped during the pandemic. So we look forward to going back to it, and we will definitely be using this resource that we had in the classroom walkthrough Wida class. All right. I don't know if you want to add anything, Maria.
Nope, I think you got it all, but yeah, that's the gist of the professional development that we do. And like Adriana said, we can't wait to go back to doing our PD on site. We've had to, I mean, we offer the option of doing online trainings before, but we felt like we could connect with teachers a lot more, especially when we did the classroom walkthroughs. We call them observation follow-ups, but classroom walkthrough is a better name. It's a more accurate name. So yeah, we really look forward to the time where we can go back to doing this, and we're definitely gonna use this tool. And that's
You can always find all these activities that we talked about today. I mean, our experience has been fantastic. We loved how our teachers were giving us great feedback, saying that now they can better understand their students, and now they understand their culture. And believe it or not, after these activities, they felt like they wanted to know their students better, because they realized how wrong they were about some of the behaviors, like Maria was saying. Just the fact, looking down here in the American culture, it can be considered disrespectful, and they were very impressed to hear that actually that is a sign of I don't even know how to call it, not humility, but you acknowledge your mistake when you look down in the Hispanic culture. While here it's considered disrespect. So our teachers were very impressed to hear that that was actually a good thing. So that's just one example, but we have many that
and I
we loved.
posted the link on the chat to the Barnga game, where you can find like an explanation how to implement it and the handouts of the rules. All you need to do is just get your decks of cards, and you can play the game when you do professional development.
All right, do you have any questions?
Yes, any questions for our guest speakers? Thank you guys for sharing. We really love to see how all these activities work when they're put into practice in different scenarios. So thank you for sharing that and the different activities.
Sure.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I just want to say I love that idea of having the puzzles and the cards, and it's a really quick way to help people feel what it's like to be in a different culture without having to go into a lot of depth. So I'm going to definitely steal those.
Yes, it's a great way for everyone to put themselves into their students' shoes, basically, and understand them.
You have a question in the chat. It says, where do I find the rules for the card games?
So I just posted the link to the website where you can find the rules, you can find the handouts, and I think there's a video because sometimes if you don't see it in action, it might be difficult to understand exactly how to move the participants. So all the rules and everything is in that website. Or you could just Google Barnga game, and you'll find all the how it's used for cultural awareness, inclusive teaching, professional development. Yeah, and you can always email us, and we'll love to share what we do for professional development.
Yes.
Okay, and remember that you can unmute if you want to ask a question. We still have a few minutes, so please feel free to to share, or if you have used any of these activities, or when they were talking, you thought like, oh, I have used something similar, and you want to share that experience, that would be great for the conversation. So please feel free to unmute and share. Nope, we have a small group, but we have a very quiet group as well, so it's okay. And as Maria said, if you can share your email in the chat, maybe they can contact you if they have other questions. Remember that you can access the archives, and then you have all this information and links as well. So then you can access and participate. And we also get these resources that the speakers share, and we add them to the archives. So you will have all this information as well. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I see the link to the resource. Monica, that's if just check that link and explore. I think Maria said that they got the cards at Dollar Tree, I think.
Yes, you can find them anywhere.
Yeah, I think so. It's been a while. But yeah, you can find them anywhere, yeah.
And we bought, I think, probably, I don't know, about 8 packs for 8 tables, because you would have about 5-6 participants. So if you have 40 people attending, you would need 8. So I think we have 8 or 10. We just got enough
Yeah.
in case they lost them while playing or something like that.
Yeah, that's one of the
It's
most
worth-
fun activities to do.
And it's
with
worth for the
teachers.
satisfaction that you see on the teachers' faces afterwards. It's so rewarding to see how
And
how
the
they feel
frustration
after
too,
the
because
day.
everybody's frustrated.
Yes, yes. And then they are like, wow, now I understand.
Communicate.
Because we usually, and that's very important, we play this game at the beginning. And by the end of the professional development, they are totally wow. They feel like, oh, now I feel empowered compared to how I was at the beginning when I played that game.
Mhm.
And it's great because they get to walk in their students' shoes for a little bit and see, oh, this is how they feel on a daily basis. So what can I do to help them feel better and really be able to participate and comprehend the content that I'm teaching? Yeah. Okay, so I don't see any more questions. Remember that this resource that they mentioned they would love to use is included in one of the workshops. And all the workshops from Wida, you can download the resources, you can use them, make some changes if you need to, so they work better in your school setting. And if you use them, just share with us so we learn a little more about how these resources are impacting your practice. So this is the end of our session. We are going to have our next session in March 8th, and we are going to review a couple of more Wida e-learning workshops. Remember, you are free to start any of the workshops. If you want to finish the workshop, then you can do it. Or if you just want to start, now explore a little bit, then you can do it. But remember, we have our, let me see if I can get out of here. I don't want to get anybody sick. I want to go to the first one. There you go, the archives, that you can access the archives, and then you will see the different sessions and you can register. The next one will be about math and a review of the home languages in the classroom workshop. So if you have some content area teachers you would like to invite, if you want to complete this workshop and use it in your PLCs, that's another way to do it. So you have the links and all the information if you want to participate. So I'm going to stop the recording and see if somebody has another question. If not, we have a few more minutes and we're going to stay and see if you have any other questions or comments.
Well, to piggyback off on that, we do have the webinar series from Wida which starts this month. It's the mathematical meaning making, collaborating for equity. And then we also have the multi-tiered systems of support, which will also be starting this month. This month. And those modules start this month as well. Those two registration or the email came out today in your listserv called PD Opportunities. And so it has the Wida e-workshops and then, of course, the eLearning Club, as well as the TALX conference and the Title III sponsorships and the Together for L's. So all those are together. But yeah, those two webinar series are open starting today. So look at your listserv and sign up.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you. Is in the recording. And let me stop.